Hey YouTube, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a comparison video, and this is the comparison you've all been waiting for. We have here the Cold Steel AD10, and right here we have the Cold Steel AD15. Two fantastic knives, and I wonder if Cold Steel anticipated how popular these two would be. They are sold out everywhere, and I wonder if they realized how many people were going to buy both. I will say, when I saw these, the minute I saw them, I knew without a shadow of a doubt that I would be buying both. And as soon as I found them in stock at DLT Trading, by the way, and I will put a link to DLT Trading down below, as soon as I saw them at DLT Trading, I immediately hit add to cart and had them on their way to my place. Okay, so I bet that happened a lot of times, but I know there are a number of you out there who are wondering, which one should I buy? Either I can't afford both, or I just don't want to own that many Cold Steels, and so I'm going to pick one or the other. Now let me hasten to add, there are a number of other knives we could add to the list of comparisons to this. We've talked about the Formax, we've talked about the Recon 1, but really we should talk about the Ultimate Hunter, we should talk about the SR1, we should talk about the American Lawman, and we should also talk about the Code 4. All of those are fantastic offerings from Cold Steel. I just don't have them all available. If you happen to have one, especially if you're in Canada and wouldn't mind sending me one for a quick comparison video, that would help out a lot. And so there's a ton of content that we could actually still do about these knives, but we just haven't got to it. By the way, any comments, questions, or requests down below would be very welcome. So go ahead and weigh in with what you think about these two knives. Which one are you going to buy, or are you going to be like me and buy both? And many others, by the way, as well as of those comparisons I listed, or those comparable knives that I listed, which one would you be most interested in? Now, after all of that, let's go ahead and get into our discussion here, comparing the Cold Steel AD15 with the Cold Steel AD10. Both of these are based on Andrew Demko custom knives, and both of them are fantastic in their execution and in their usefulness, and I can absolutely see why these have been so popular for Cold Steel. By the way, a number of you always mention that you like to see both sides of the knife, so I'm going to try to go back and forth with which side of the knife I'm showing you as we work our way through here. So value on these, let's get this out of the way right off the bat. This guy is available most places for $149. This guy is available most places for $159. The only other option that you had was you could get these from Massdrop, and I think you can just subtract. I think this was 120 and 130 on Massdrop, but I'm pretty sure that's accurate. Okay, so now that we've got all of that stuff out of the way, you kind of know that there's a little extra coin you're going to have to lay down if you want to go to the AD15, or if you want both, you're going to be looking at about $300, okay? So let's get into this, beginning with size and weight and how they carry in pocket. Which one is more comfortable to carry around with you all the time? And I've got to say that pretty definitively goes to the AD10, and I'll talk about why that is in a second. But first, this guy, AD15, is 8 5/8 inches overall, 3 11/16 on the blade length, 5 3/16 on the closed length. Okay, now look at this very quickly. That's this whole dimension. It's not this dimension. Okay, next up, this is 9/16 thick. It's actually a little thinner than the AD10, and it weighs in at 6.5 ounces. The 10 over here is actually bigger in a number of areas. So 8 3/4 inches overall, 3 5/8 on the blade length, 5 5/16 on the closed length, so it's a little over 5 1/4 inches. Now it is 5/8 of an inch thick, so it's actually thicker, and it's a little heavier at 6.8 ounces. However, notice two significant things here. First, the contoured G10. Second, the smoothness of the G10. And because of those two things, this knife is actually much less noticeable in pocket than the AD15. The AD15 is definitely a knife you feel when you're carrying it. As I've said before, it doesn't bother me at all to carry around either one of these knives, but you will notice the AD15 just a little bit more than you will the AD10. And so for that reason, the AD10 gets the nod in terms of size, weight, and carry. That is, how comfortable is this to carry around with you? The AD10 is a little more comfortable than the AD15, although neither are terribly onerous. Okay, moving on to the blade. Now here we're going to see a little more of a departure. Both are S35 VN, both are satin finishes, both I think are beautifully, beautifully done. However, there's a pretty big difference in the way these are ground. This is a hollow grind, meaning it's kind of cupped out here. So I don't know if I can show you this very easily on camera. You can kind of see the curvature right down there by the plunge grind. Now, if you look at the AD15, you can see there's no curvature. This is perfectly flat. Now, what does that mean in terms of practical application? Well, it means the AD15 isn't going to slice quite as well, although the extra bit of material here in the blade is going to give you a little bit more strength. Although that's, if you're pushing a knife to the point that you care about how much steel is here because you're really about to break it, I don't know what you're doing with your knives. I really rarely find myself in that situation. That said, I do appreciate the toughness delivered by this blade, and I have to make a special, what would you say? I have to give special credit to the fact that they have delivered here a knife that slices really well, even though it's really tough. Okay, so they've walked a very fine line here to give us a knife that you could use every day for all kinds of things. Whether you're cutting up an apple or cardboard or opening a package, it's going to work really, really well. It's just not going to slice quite as nicely as the hollow grind does on the AD10. Okay, so that's how these two blades kind of break down. In terms of cutting edge, they're really too close to care about. In terms of overall length, again, they're too close to care about. The significant difference is the hollow grind versus the flat grind. The flat grind is going to give a little more durability, although not a whole lot more. The hollow grind is going to give a little more slicing power. Again, hardly more, but it's there. Okay, you can notice it. If you go and cut some cardboard with these two, you can feel a little bit of a difference. Okay, so that's how the two blades work out. And I have to say that, you really are going to have to decide which one you like better. Okay, if I'm going to be cutting a whole bunch of stuff, I'm probably going to lean toward the AD10. So I guess we have to give this one again to the AD10 in terms of practical usefulness, unless you have some special purpose for your knife that requires every bit of strength that you can get. And then if that's the case, you may not want, then maybe you need to go up to a 4max anyway. All right, so that's the blade and how the two blades compare. Next is going to be lockup. I guess lockup and deployment. And I have said this multiple times, the AD10 is one of the best executions of the triad lock that I have ever seen. It's comfortable, it's smooth, it's flickable, it's easily operable with one hand. Really, really, really impressive. The only cold steel that I have that even comes close is the 4max, and the 4max is $350. So to get that kind of performance out of the triad lock is not frequent. This one is really, really good. Moving on to the AD15, the Scorpion Lock here, designed by Andrew Demko, is a very cool locking mechanism. I love the mechanics of this lock, and while it's not quite as comfortable or not quite as fidgetable as the AD10 is, it is so cool. Okay, I love the design that it gives. I love how the knife ends up being open like that, and you can see the blade through it when it's closed. Just a fantastic, fantastic idea. I will say the production AD15s are not quite as smooth, not quite as drop shut as the custom, but as you can see, this is the way I do it. I just pull the lock back, give it that little flick, and then close it up, and it works quite well for me. So how do we compare these two locks? Obviously, well, not obviously, but I would suggest that the AD10 with the triad lock is certainly a known quantity, and it's probably going to be a little bit stronger. I'm a little surprised we haven't seen any testing videos published on the Scorpion lock. It's still very, very strong, very, very capable. Now, here's where you kind of have to make the call, and it's a similar call to what we've been making all the way along. The AD15, I don't think anyone would argue, is cool. Okay, it definitely gets all the style points on this comparison. However, in terms of usability, in terms of comfort, practicality, I have to give the lock to the AD10. Some people are going to feel like that's controversial. And for those of you who disagree, I'm with you that the Scorpion Lock is one of the coolest things that has ever happened in the knife industry. But I'm trying to make this, as user oriented as possible. As if someone asked me, which one would you want to use and carry all the time if you had no other options, okay? So that's the Lockup. How about the handle, okay? Both of these handles are very well built. They're very strong. The fit and finish is quite good. Both of them are fairly comfortable, although one is definitely going to stand out. Now let's quickly run down here. By the way, these are aluminum liners, and I think I said in a previous video that they were stainless steel. I did a little bit of research, and I had to check for myself. A lot of websites list these as stainless steel liners, but they are definitely aluminum. And so we have aluminum liners with contoured G10 and a triad lock here with the construction fairly similar. By the way, aluminum backspacer as well. Moving over here, we've got G10, heavily textured G10, Scorpion Lock. And this lock, the back strap here on the lock, or the lock bar, whatever you want to call it, is aluminum. The liners here, though, are stainless steel. So there's some slight differences in construction between these two. Both are very strong. Both are very reliable. I wouldn't be the least bit concerned about the strength or durability on either one of these. The big difference is going to be, one, I think the novelty, okay? So the Scorpion Lock, when we're talking about construction, is definitely a cooler looking lock, and aesthetically it looks pretty cool as well. Now, more significantly from a user standpoint is how they feel in hand. And both of these are fairly thick handles, okay, and both of them have quite a bit of real estate, a good 3 3/4 of an inch or so of grip area here. But let me say that there's no question the AD10 is more comfortable in hand than the AD15. It just absolutely is. It feels so perfect in hand that if I was thinking of, really, really heavy duty, hard use, I would be leaning toward the AD10. It is absolutely more comfortable. Not that the AD15 is uncomfortable or problematic at all. It is totally fine in hand, but it just doesn't feel, the AD10 is nearly perfect in terms of ergonomics. So that's where the big difference to me on the handles are going to be. All right. Finally, now, in terms of grippiness, I guess we should make that point as well. The AD15, if you were at all worried about blade retention or how grippy it's going to be, the AD15 does do really, really good with this heavily textured G10. Okay, so finally, let's finish this off with which one should you buy? Both of these are really well built. Both of them are really cool looking knives. And maybe I've overstated I think the AD15 is fantastic. I love, love, love this design. But don't for a moment think that I don't find the AD10 incredibly aesthetically pleasing. I think it's a beautiful knife. I love Andrew Demko designs. It is really, really nice. But I think more cool points have got to be given to the AD15, okay? Both of these are highly effective cutting tools. Now, again, I don't want it to be like, I don't want to go the opposite here and say, yep, the AD10 is all about practicality and it's by far the better user. Both of these are great tools. Both of them are highly, highly useful, okay? But is the AD15 cooler? Yes, absolutely. And if I could only keep one of these, if someone said, Kevin, you must get rid of one or the other, I would keep the AD15 because I love the design. I just find it to be so cool and so interesting and so, I love the aesthetics of it. I love the functionality of it. Every time I look at this knife, I think, how cool is that knife? However, okay, if someone is asking me which is the better user, which is the better all-around general use folding knife, I've got to say that is the AD10. All right, for sure. And so, however, whatever you guys want to do with that and whatever choice you want to make, that's up to you. But what I'm going to tell you right now is, to me, the cool points from the AD15 are going to be the deciding factor. I think this is one of the most interesting designs that is available in the knife world. However, I also think this is a great design and a better user for day-to-day cutting tasks. All right, not that the AD15 is a slouch, but that's how this comparison breaks down to me. I'd love to hear your comments down below. I'd love to hear you suggest any other comparisons that you'd like to make. And I'd love for you to hit that subscribe button and the notification button, since YouTube doesn't care about subscribers anymore. We will talk to you soon. Huge thank you for watching. Goodbye.